There's a school of thought that you don't need to go to film school, and that's true. I mean, you can use your phone or you can get a camera and make a film in your backyard with your buddies and all of that, you know, and if you're willing to work hard, you can go onto a set and become a production assistant. Here's the value of film school. If you're in a good film school, like this film school, you're being taught by people who have experience. That should kind of boost you along on the path to becoming a filmmaker much quicker.
You know, there are any number of people who will tell you you don't need a degree to be in this business. But I mean, I just feel like that people ought to have some sort of idea about, you know, how the business works and some of the trials and tribulations that you're going to have to go through this, because it's just not easy. This realistic approach of what's going on in this business and things about how, you know, how many hours a day you work and where you should go and all those things. These are things you have to learn in college.
I really like teaching students because I recall myself at that age, and I like to teach and talk with them as if I was talking to the younger me. So I like to teach the things I feel like I did not learn, specifically how to break into the industry, what to do, how to network, and how to set goals for specifically where you want to go, and then also how to get there.
What I find valuable about film school is it's a creative space for students and filmmakers to experiment and to play and to follow their voice.
Film school allows for a space to practice that is free from having to work full time. It's like a little safe, it's not exactly a bubble, but a place that allows you to explore and find out what works and find out what doesn't work in relative safety.
It's like you're in an environment with hundreds of other like-minded people who want to do the same thing and who are kind of at the same experience level as you.
But you know, there's something else that film school has to do that you're probably not going to get another chance to do in the professional film world, and that's experiment and take risks that people are less and less willing to take in the industry. And I don't think our film school should just be a sort of feeding mechanism for these TV shows, these big streamers like Netflix and these big studios. I want our students to be ready for that, but you've got to experiment. You've got to be able to try and find your own voice here. You've got to take risks now, because it's going to be harder to take them when you're trying to pay your rent or your mortgage. And that's just the reality of it. So I'm always eager to see a student take a risk, fail, take another risk, and fail again. That's fine. I think that's a gift that this program can preserve.
Well, I think you have to start with Richard Sodders first. Primarily, I think at the time, was just editing classes, and this is probably back in the maybe mid to late 90s or something like that. So it was, as far as I know, at least in this department anyway, it was probably some of the first film classes that were offered on campus. This is when I was at the Film Commission, and it was just like, you know, it's really too early to retire, but I'd been there too long and it was time to leave and I needed something else to do. And so I thought about teaching, and teaching practical, the things that I've just been talking about. So I came down here to talk to Richard, and so Richard hired me, and I came in with the idea as I'm going to teach these practical courses, the business of film, how the business works. I started out with 2 classes, and then the demand just started coming up, and more people got interested, and so we started adding classes, and by the time I left here in 2000 was it 18? It was a full curriculum. And so over the years, through money that I raised or workshops and things that I did and got other people to put into it and stuff like that, the equipment started to build up. So after Richard retired, we had to find somebody to replace him, and we found Johnny.
When I arrived, we had quite a few film classes being offered in the theater and dance department. But I set about sort of formalizing those classes, bringing them through the new course proposal process. And then we started to build a curriculum so that we could offer this concentration, the film production concentration. So it was a lot of curriculum design. You know, what courses how would we accept students? What would the application process be like? What would they need to offer in terms of a portfolio and classes and GPAs? Sort of formulating that. So curriculum work, building faculty, building resources. I think when I got here we had 4 cameras and a couple of mics. You know, now I think we have 14 cameras and just as many microphones, and we have several dozen LED light kits. It's all changed a little bit because we're no longer taking over an older building. We're actually getting a new building from scratch at a wonderful site on campus. So really the next sort of phase for me and the next sort of big task is to manage that transition into a bigger home, a film home, which would also mean a much bigger film student body and considerably more and new equipment.
Theater and dance and film use all of the same craftspeople, right? The actors, costume people, lighting people, writers, right? It's just a real natural fit.
Luckily, the Board of Regents agreed with us and set aside $10 million for a development of our own film building. And so that's been a big part of what I'm doing. So we'll have at least 3 more teaching spaces, because that's a big issue here. We'll have a sound stage, a computer room, and an audio room. And so we'll have resources to accomplish all the programming that we want to accomplish. The building will allow us to do is really shrink that gap between you've as a student finishing your academic experience on campus and your professional life, so that when you step onto a feature film or a sound stage or a TV show as a PA or however you get your first job, it's not going to feel foreign to you.
Filmmaking can be a course of study for people with money, right? But there are a lot of stories to be told, right? And just because you may not have a big pocketbook, you still need to have your story being told. So what I would like to see, and what I am seeing, is that this film department is a home for a lot of different kinds of voices, and we're more accessible than maybe some of the more fancier film schools, but we're telling stories and creating work that needs to be seen. And in the next 5 years, I'd like to see even more of that.
So I would have people come into my office at the Film Commission. It's like, how do I get in this business? There are film schools, and then there's just people who work in the business. The application that you're to work on a film never says anything about a college degree. It's just like, do you know what you're doing? What you saw was that they concentrated primarily on directing, cinematography, producing, writing, and things like these are all jobs that a degree's not going to get you a job doing that.
I think one of the most important things that we can do in the film department is help you find your voice as a filmmaker. Get closer to what you think your voice is. So we want to instill these core skills that can apply to every realm in life. Because once you're on a film set, the learning curve is just so steep and you have so much more coming at you. I just want our student filmmakers to be ready when that happens, as ready as they can be. So, as far as working on sets, that's what we try and do. We try and emulate what the real world is like to some extent. I think one of the most valuable things about getting a degree in film is all of those skills that you're picking up, maybe not consciously, maybe that you're not aware of, maybe it's not on a syllabus. I'm talking about things like project management, the art of collaborating with people, the art of team building and conflict resolution, how to recognize the resources that you have and allocate them appropriately. So I think even if you got a film degree and you suddenly graduated and realized you didn't want to work in film, which happens every now and then, you have this core set of skills that you can apply to almost any endeavor that you do in life.
Things change constantly, and that's actually like the truth of the film industry. It's constantly changing. It seems as if there are more and more avenues to get your work out there, but it actually kind of isn't. It's almost like the barriers are higher because there's only so many ways for films to be discovered at independent movie theaters. Like, that's not really a way to get your movie out and seen and discovered as much anymore. I think, as a young filmmaker, just kind of staying focused on that and not necessarily worrying so much about how things are going to be seen or how you're going to fit into the landscape. Being passionate about the stories that you want to tell is always the most important thing.
You cannot make a film alone, right? It's meeting other people who are in the film department who also want to be filmmakers, and that you can work together to create and to learn and to build your careers together. Because as you go along the path, you guys can pull each other up, and that is really invaluable. It's the cohort. That's what I call the cohort.
Sort of foundationally and fundamentally, there's a lot of things that are the same. So there's a lot of foundational courses that really can serve both disciplines. And if we're serving both film and theater at the foundational level with the shared resources, it allows the subsequent more advanced levels to go farther.
So there's a lot of ways in film school that you can connect. Class is the first way. Showing up, right? Coming to class and talking to people in your classes. It's not necessarily just a social thing, but showing up and volunteering for somebody else's work or reading somebody else's work and giving them notes, making connections in class. You can go into class and everybody's quiet as a mouse, but to use it well, you talk to people before class starts, get to know people, right? The second way is for, like I say, volunteering on other people's work.
I think being able to share each other's work and then being able to break it down and support each other and critique it, and that back and forth where everyone's kind of leaning forward a little bit and you can kind of tell people are learning from that experience. I think that's the most exciting thing. And I think especially at Texas State, it's a very artistic atmosphere.
The film club here started out really small and it's grown exponentially. And the people in the film club here and in classes here are now working, say, for HBO or for Netflix or different places like that. And they're getting each other work. They're getting people on the set. They're helping each other out. The more you know about this, the better off you're going to be, the more of an experienced, valued team member on a film that you'll be.